don't we start out by indicating that we are going to be going in order with, first of all, a presentation as to the substance of the application that's going to be made for a communications tower on Cooks Butte. We will introduce 5 different individuals who will be talking to you about what the substance of that proposal is. That will take approximately 20 to 25 minutes. At that point in time, we'll open the meeting up for comments from the public. We will go in order. If you have a ticket, it will say 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. I will call those in order. I would ask that you limit, given the size of the crowd and trying to get as many people to speak as possible, that you limit your comments to 1 comment or 1 question. And that is so that your other neighbors have an opportunity to also make their comments and questions. We have a limitation on how long we have the room available tonight, and we have it until 8 o'clock. This will not be your only opportunity to provide public input. This is primarily for informational purposes. And with that, I would like to introduce John Hartsock, who is the C800 manager. He will begin the public presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is John Hartsock. I'm the manager of C800, and I thought I'd just spend a couple of minutes explaining who C800 is. It is a consortium of all the public safety providers in Clackamas County, fire and law, 18 different agencies. So I have the thrill of a board of directors of 18 folks. So I have an 18-member review team as my bosses. It was formed in 2000 for the purpose of building a better public safety communication system in Clackamas County. Started actually, one of the charter agencies was Lake Oswego, Clackamas County Sheriff, and Clackamas County Fire District 1. It now includes all 18 public safety providers throughout the county. We partner with Washington County, similar system, it's called WACA, but a similar system, and we use it as a joint system which produces tremendous savings. In 2016, actually started in 2010, we did a study of the system and the changes in technology going from an analog system to a digital system. In 2016, we took a vote to the residents of the county. It was approved by 72% margin, which was very exciting for us, and we $59 million bond issue to replace the system. That's what's now underway. We have completed land use in a number of jurisdictions. For this site, we're doing land use for the Lake Oswego. So with that, I'll turn it over to, and I have cards here if any of you want them. Please feel free to call or email me. And Bjorn, if you want to go through the project.
Sure. I'm Bjorn Morfitt. I'm the project manager. I'm going to go through kind of the description of the site fairly rapidly because I know you have a lot of questions. And we'll be able to hopefully get to most of them. As you know, we're proposing a 180-foot tower at Cooks Butte, a 50-foot by 50-foot fenced lease compound. It's about 200 feet in from the dead end at Palisades Crest Drive, which is kind of depicted on this, which is hard to see. But everything I'm showing you is in the packets that you picked up at the front. If you didn't get one, please get one on the way out. This is an enlarged site plan, a little more close in of the facility. And of course, the things that you guys are probably most concerned about is, here's the tower and what it'll look like. The reason why it's 180 feet tall is we have about 80 feet of space that we use on the tower. And we need to be able to clear as many trees as we can.
It's actually taller than that, what I understand.
There's antennas that go up to 196, that's correct.
Why don't we say it's 196 then?
196, actually.
Excuse me. Please let the public safety people make their presentation first.
Yeah.
We'll have time for questions.
So the tower is 180. There's appurtenances above it to goes to 196.5, I believe. The purpose of this facility, it is the best location, the purpose for the location is the best location in a city that serves the purposes of the site in general. We have propagation maps, which are also in the packet, that show existing coverage for public safety communication, which Cooks Butte is right here. And yellow and green and light oranges are not perfect coverage. We're trying to get good indoor coverage as well as improving outdoor coverage. So if you toggle between the two, you'll see quite a bit of improvement with Cooks Butte here. It's pretty much solid red, which means excellent indoor coverage. So that's kind of a brief description on the propagation maps. Oh yeah, also, the plans are still in the works. It's predominantly done. Initially we thought we were going to have to light the tower. We do not have to light the tower anymore. So that's a good thing.
What did you say, what kind of tower?
We originally thought that we were going to have to put a light, a beacon at the top of the tower. We've since learned that we don't have to do that. But let me please continue with this, then we can get to the questions. Thanks.
We had a helicopter go over today over that exact spot, and it was like right with the.
Excuse me. We have presentations to begin with, and then we will let each of you that wishes to speak up until 8 o'clock. The longer we delay the presentation, the longer we delay your ability to make comments on the record.
So we've also done photo simulations, which is kind of a before and proposed look or after look of the tower. This particular shot is taken at just down from the dead end of Palisades Crest Drive. This is the before picture, and again, these are in your packet. This is the after, and you can barely see the tower, and you in the back are going to see this, but barely visible. Again, close, you can look at the ones in your packet a little closer.
Did you say fairly visible or barely?
Oh, barely with this from that location, yeah.
They're in your packet.
This is a second photo simulation we did, and this is, get my notes here. This is at Ridge Point Drive and Meadowlark Lane intersection. Again, before and after. You see probably the top 30 feet of the tower there, 40 feet maybe. This photo was taken from Stephen Meadows, and there is no view before or after, so not much to show there. And the next photo sim we took is at the intersection of Palisades Crest Drive and Southwest Delenka Lane. Before and after, and again, all you see is the top, probably 18 feet of just the antennas alone. And this is a photo sim you guys are probably most concerned about. This was taken at the bench, at the meadow, at the park. And this is obviously where the tower is going to be most visible. Obviously before, and there's the after. You see a good majority of the tower at that location. And that's kind of my short, sweet presentation on why we chose this location. It's the best for the RF needs for the city of Lake Oswego and Clackamas County overall. So I'm going to turn it over to Chief Jorgensen. And Chief Johnson will speak after Dale does.
Actually, we have a team. We're here from the public safety side of the city. As mentioned, my name is Dale Jorgensen. I have the privilege of being the police chief in Lake Oswego. Chief Johnson is the fire chief in Lake Oswego. And then for those that don't know, we actually have our own dispatch center called LOCOM that handles all of our communications, not only for our city, but also for the cities of Westland and Milwaukee by contract. So we have our own dispatch center. So when you dial 911, not that this meeting's about that, your call actually goes to a room in our police department down at City Hall and is answered by dispatchers. So we're here just to kind of talk about the need from a public safety standpoint, and I'm going to talk for just a few minutes, and then Sue Scobert, who's our communications manager, is going to talk from a dispatcher's point of view. But I know everybody here, at least I would like to hope that everybody here supports public safety. And I'm going to tell you from a public safety standpoint, I don't like podiums. From a public safety standpoint, the tool we use more than anything, is our radio. And we have two radios. We have this one, and we have one in the car. And I'm going to tell you, from a public standpoint, the most important tool that we have for you is our radio. Because when you call 911 and want a cop or a fire person or an ambulance to get there, the last thing you don't want is for our dispatch center not to be able to call us on the radio and say, can you go to 123 whatever street and help them? And right now, we have issues, and I'll let the technical people talk about the technical issues that we have with our failing system that is old and decrepit, and the bond that went out a few years ago that everybody in this room had an opportunity to vote for was one of those issues that we wanted to take care of, was our radio coverage. Because on the back side of this road overlook, there are some serious coverage issues where when a cop is on this radio, can't talk to our dispatch center or to other cops. And more importantly, in this building that we're sitting in, when we come in here and we get down into the bottom of this building, the way it's constructed because of all the earthquake measures, same with Lake Oswego High and same with buildings out in Meadows, without the proper towers and radio coverage, we can't get out. And there's nothing more terrifying for both the citizens and our cops and firefighters not to be able to push a button and talk to somebody that can come and give them help. I think that's the easiest part of this whole situation, is for us to tell you the need, because the need is very great. And having the ability to serve the community in a manner that, quite frankly, you should be served, by being able to rely on your public safety professionals to give you help when you need help, is critical. That's the reason why we need towers. When there is an incident in a school, heaven forbid that ever happen, we need to be able to come in here, click our radio, and talk to the people that are right outside the door. And in some cases, that doesn't happen now. This new system will alleviate most of those problems. And as was mentioned, when looking for best coverage, we're kind of selfish. And that tower, where it sits, according to the technical people, will give us the best coverage as Lake Oswego residents and as public safety professionals. So, you know, all the different debates can go on. I just know that I want our officers and I want our citizens to be served by the best possible radio system we can. And with that, I'll let Sue kind of talk from a dispatch standpoint.
So I'm not a public speaker. I'm a dispatcher, like you said. I talk to people on the phone and I talk to people on a radio. So I hope I'm loud enough, and I will do my best, and I brought notes because there's a lot of you. And again, I'm not a public speaker. So I have dispatched officers and firefighters in this city for 7 years to a variety of calls before I was promoted to my current position. I'm doing my best. I know that several areas of the city have limited or no radio coverage. Blue Heron is an example, and ironically, so is Meadows. All those office buildings, if I have an officer or a firefighter in those buildings, we can't talk to them. We often have no idea what is going on in that building. I can tell you as a dispatcher, there are few things that are as troubling or as terrifying as not being able to talk to my responders. As dispatchers, we use that background noise from those radios to assess what's going on, to keep our responders and our citizens safe. And if I can't reach my officer, I can tell you I have an emotional and often a physical response. When you have a phone call and you have people screaming and you can't get a hold of those responders at that scene to know what's happening and if they have the right resources and if they're safe, that's very troubling. We take our job very seriously. We take the responsibility of keeping the men and women that serve this community as your first responders very seriously. And I can tell you that radio is how we do it. And as the chief said, you have a lot of other points to make, but I can speak from that perspective. And the tower will benefit the citizens and our ability to serve you from a law enforcement and a fire perspective.
I'm Don Johnson. I'm the fire chief here in the city, and I want to give my time back to you because I think they said it very well. I can tell you that I have been in situations where I couldn't contact the dispatch center, and it is a really troubling thing when you're trying to deliver a service, when you're trying to help somebody, to not be able to do that. This system would allow us to provide the coverage for the officers, for the citizens that we need, and I'll leave it there for you.
With that, I'd like to open the meeting to public questions and comments. Is the individual who has card number 1 available and wish to speak? Anybody?
I'm coming up.
Number 1.
Hi, John. Hi. I'm Mike Gershon, and I've only been in the community since 1986. And just some information, this came up in '94. John wasn't aware of it, where people wanted the tower in the nature preserve. Came up in 2002, and once again, the community said no. What I'm upset about, and I'm not blaming anyone, and by the way, I think you do need a tower. There's nothing that says that you don't. The location that you decided to try to get for the 3rd time is a nature preserve. That was a contract that was written in 1975. A family gave 42 acres as a gift to the city for a nature preserve in good faith. And then in 2002, when they thought Marjorie was dead, there was a clarification that said no telecommunication towers on the land that we granted you. In good faith, I feel the people that were involved in 75 are no longer around. So they're saying, it's not my problem. We're going to go ahead and take it over anyhow. That's my issue. Thank you.
Number 2, please. I'm sorry?
You can stay up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Save time.
You don't need to come down to the microphone.
So the bond measure was passed in 2014. 16. And we've been desiring to put a tower in since 2002 in this place. The question I have is that with technology today rapidly changing, we have 5G on the corner, everyone's rapidly deploying this. How long is it going to take for this tower to be built, and will it be out of date by the time we actually start using it?
The answer is no. The project was scheduled to go online in mid-2020, and we are on track to do that. We have 2 other land use sites, one in the city of Portland and this one to accomplish. Everything else has been accomplished.
He
Do we have
asked,
access
when will the
to-
technology go out of date?
About,
That was the question.
I don't know that there's anybody in the technology business that can ever predict when technology. The way we have the system purchased is with a 10-year guaranteed ongoing maintenance. So it'll be at least 10 years, if not longer, but 10 years is the way we have it established at this point.
Can I do one follow-up question? Now, can I clarify that for me?
I would like to give another person an opportunity unless number 3 waives.
No, I don't want to waive. I just want to follow up too because I want to clarify.
Go ahead.
Is there some place where we can go and review the technology choices you had and see for ourselves why this was the best technology, especially since that was 2016 or 2019 and 5G is on the cusp?
We are. That is part of our application to the city to explain those issues, part of our land use application. And we will, as we get that together, we can make that available.
Hopefully before the DRC so we can review it.
Yes, it would be, yes, absolutely for the DRC. Thank you. Did you want to?
Number 3.
Hello, thank you for coming out and telling us this information. I think it's really nice of you. Really great to see the first responders out here. Thank you for coming out tonight. And thank you all, your green shirters and everybody else that is here. Wow, what a crowd. Did you think this many people were going to be here?
Yeah, we picked about 100 people.
Maybe you should have got a bigger room. And a microphone. Yeah. So one of the things that I'm curious about is, because I also think that Cooks Butte is a natural reserve and it probably isn't the best place for this kind of an antenna. And I see that you've done some studies about other locations. Have you actually looked at and surveyed other locations that could be an alternative if Cooks Butte is not going to be the place to put up this tower?
The answer is yes, we have. I think there's probably 10.
We've looked at about 17 other locations, primarily on the county side, not in the city jurisdiction. But we came back to Cooks being the absolute best. We looked at coverage objectives in the other areas. We had height restrictions, so we couldn't get the tower heights. We had to walk away. We had uninterested landlords, and ultimately we ended up.
Yeah, let me give you.
I think most people here want you to find another location.
Well, part of the issue is the terrain in Lake Oswego. For instance, the site we're doing in Wilsonville is at one end of Wilsonville, and we get this same level of coverage at the other because of the flat terrain. It's the terrain that causes the biggest issues here.
Thank you. Number 4.
I have a public safety question that's more about years and weeks than it is about acute events, as it been addressed here. I'm an orthopedic spine surgeon who spent the last several years with research and radiation safety in the operating room. And I've reviewed the current literature on radiation exposure and safety with regarding cell towers. Cell towers damage cell function and is associated with increased cancer risks, ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, diabetes, and memory loss. There's a German study identifying that the trees lose their branches on one side and then ultimately the tree dies over time. This is not a benign thing. And you do not have data to demonstrate safety. And I don't think it's safe for this tower to be in a public park where people are walking. We were told that Roundup was safe. We were told that oxycodone was safe. We were told that vaping was safe. Love Canal, PGE, Aaron Brockovich. I think that this radiation exposure is going to be exposed over time to be more dangerous. And I challenge you to produce the data that demonstrates safety, because based on my review, you can't do it.
Your number was, I'm sorry, number 4, number 5?
Let us respond.
I think you need to address it.
We are.
Address it.
So, well, 2 things. We did do actual studies from that tower to a house to the west, and we have the results of that study. It did not increase the amount of radiation that's already in the atmosphere. We also have other studies that we're required to produce as part of the land use application. And again, We do have the studies, and we will have that information as part of our application.
Do I have time to respond?
No. We have,
Number 10 would waive their time.
all right, thank you.
That study is inadequate. It takes one dose near a house and does not incorporate long-term exposure. This cell tower by the Telecommunication Act of 1996 will allow anything else to be put on top of it. So that measurement doesn't include what is added on later and what radiation exposure will increase over time. It's an inadequate study and it proves nothing.
I want to also thank our wonderful fire and police people. I think they do a great job and our lives depend on it, most of all. I have lots of issues with the tower, but my issue I want to talk about today is the environmental impact of the project. Are there any provisions to mitigate for the loss of birds, especially during nesting season, under the International Migratory Bird Act?
It is covered as part of our studies in the application.
Is that, and that is within the application itself, and
It's part of the requirements of the Lake Oswego Code when we are making our land use applications.
okay.
6.
My name is Steve Cook. My brother owns the Shipley Cook family farm, the Century Farm just down the road. As kids, we tromped all over the butte before there was any houses or anything. There's a sacred site for the Grand Ronald tribe. Have they been brought into this at all? And is there going to be a state architect or archaeologist there to see if there's any artifacts that are unearthed? And the reason I'm asking that is we're led to believe that the base for that is going to be dug a 20-foot hole filled with concrete to support that. And years from now, we're curious about what's going to happen to that 20-foot hunk of concrete.
So to answer your question, yes, Grand Ron tribes have been involved all along. Well, as soon as we got kind of engaged, they've given us approval to move forward with a couple of conditions. One, that an archaeologist will be there during ground disturbance. We also will have an arborist there during ground disturbance to make sure that we're protecting tree root systems and those things. So yes, they are directly involved.
Number 7.
Hi, thank you again for the service you provide our community. I know it's really important in having a tower. Can you not hear me?
Louder.
Okay, I just thank them for the good job they're doing and the desire for a tower. I've lived on Palisades Crest Drive for over 25 years. I'm a retired wildlife biologist, and as such, I've done a lot of work with migratory birds and other wildlife, and I've walked in the park many times a week for most of these 25 years, and I've kept extensive lists of birds and wildlife observed there. But the question kind of pertains to the previous speaker's question about how you're addressing the federal Migratory Bird Treaty Act, not just during construction, but during operation. You say it's in the plan, but the city of Portland, for example, I put together guidelines that can be used for mitigating the impact if the decision to go forward is made. I'm just wondering if you could provide any more detail about just saying it's in the plan. What kind of considerations are you giving?
We don't have the final report from a person just like yourself. We will have it, and it is part of what we have to submit as part of the plan. And I'm going to assume for the moment that they will make it one of the conditions of approval that we follow those standards.
And will there be an opportunity for public comment on that?
Yes, we didn't say earlier, this is the neighborhood meeting portion. The next process, we do this, send meeting notes out to the neighborhood association. We will then make our application. Once the application, technical term called deemed complete, they will then send out a notice in the 300-foot radius. We're going to do some additional, it's published in the paper. We'll make sure the notice gets out wide and far. We'll contact the people that have signed in. And that is a public hearing in front of the Design Review Commission, which then that testimony goes into their decision. And if you decide you don't like their decision, you can appeal it and it goes to the city council. And if you don't like that decision, you can appeal it and it goes to the land use board and say. So this is the first one just to get general information.
Thank you.
The chart, by the way, of that process is in the handout.
Number 8.
I'm number 8 and I yield my time because the question was about Native Americans. That was it.
Thank you. Number 9.
Number 9. I'm a 22-year resident of the neighborhood and almost daily user of the park. My question is regarding the generator. Can you describe the details of the generator and decibel levels and noise associated with the use of the generator?
The generator is for, obviously, when there is a power loss. It is exercised 1 day a week, and that time is variable. We generally do it around 10 o'clock on a Tuesday. Don't ask me why, that was just a date we chose a long time ago. That can be adjusted if it needs to be. There are requirements by the Department of DEQ, Environmental Quality, that sets the levels it can be. During the test period, it's measured at the generator and it has to be a certain level at the property line. We are well below that. We just got the report, is the reason I happen to know that. The other, and because it's for emergency uses, it's only that testing period that comes to be within the code, and we are. The other is the air conditioners, which can run at night. And again, we're below the allowed noise level at the property line.
How will the generator be powered?
Excuse me.
It's a diesel.
It goes next to number 11. Does that answer your question? Jen waived her time. She waived her time. Number 11.
Thank you, our services. We've had to have an ambulance to our house. We understand how long it takes. Our home is located directly next to the park at the top of Palisades Crest Drive. And I have a personal question. I'm sure that you all, the neighbors, are concerned about the value of your homes, as we are, extremely. What studies are you doing to evaluate the decline in the real estate value of the homes that you are encumbered?
I can speak to that. We're not doing any studies for that. Historically, we have not seen any devaluation due to a cell tower being even right in between two homes. With no trees in between. We have not seen, we used to pay for those studies years and years ago, and it always came with the same answer: there is no proof of any devaluation. And typically it's not a code issue anyway. Not that we don't care, but it's not criteria that we are required to address.
Comments are a lot to do with that.
Number 12.
I'm number 12. My name is Terry Olson. I've been in Lake Oswego since '86. Our property also backs onto the deep. I use it every day. My son is a police officer, so I'm very worried about if you guys are having problems with communication. That doesn't work for me even one time a week, one time a month. I don't want an officer or a firefighter in danger. That doesn't work for me. My question is, you say your present equipment is old and antique. You use a different word than antique. It doesn't work well enough. You didn't tell me what it was, where it is, how it works. My question leads to that equipment, and if you upgrade and if you trained, is sufficient till you started this study. Why is it then eliminated from the process?
It's the two sites that basically serve Lake Oswego are Pete's Mountain in the Westland area and View Acres in the Milwaukee area with a little fill-in from a site in Washington County called Canterbury. It is somewhat the same equipment. It is analog. The reason it is obsolete is Motorola quit supporting it actually in 2016. So to a certain degree, we're living on borrowed time right now. Fortunately, we have adequate spares to keep the system up. We're going to digital. And not to take too much time, but if any of you remember when we went from analog to digital on your cell phone, your analog phone would go well beyond coverage. Sometimes it would go for miles, sometimes it wouldn't, but the propagation allowed that to happen. Under digital, when the digital loses its signal, it's gone. And you can't wait a second, it has to reconnect to the system. So it's very definitive. So we're adding the coverage to solve the coverage areas we have in Lake Oswego, but also to make it reliable all the time.
So those present sites cannot be improved.
They are being improved as part of this process.
And you're talking about height research, so they can't be rated, those present sites.
They are raised. There's two things on the height. One is to clear the tree cover with our microwave dishes, because we communicate between sites with microwaves. The trees, we have trees in this area in the 140-foot range. They grow 1-2 foot a year. So it's to allow some growth, but to be able to have that communication. We also, like our receive antennas, which are on the very top, to have the clearest site, because that radio the chief has is low in wattage because it's held by a human being, and it needs to pick up that signal out of that radio. So it's to make that antenna clear to see the radio.
So again, answer the question I asked you. I'm assuming you're telling me no, the 3 present towers cannot be increased in size or to accomplish the job.
That is correct.
Absolutely not. You have that down.
Yes, sir.
Number 13?
I still am not clear why the city can allow this tower to be built if the stipulation for the land was that it had to be kept in its natural state.
When we make application for land use in virtually every jurisdiction in Oregon, we need the landowner to sign that application. So we went to the city, explained that we want to, again, look at siting here. They met with the family and signed, I'm going to say the word waiver, which may not be the right word, but allowed the city to move ahead as long as it was public safety only. They therefore then entered into a lease, which was done at a public city meeting, and some of you may have been there were quite a few there, and entered into a lease with us for the site.
Number 14, did that?
The city.
Number 14?
I have a question in relationship to the oversized generator that will be tested once a week. And I'm wondering, is that like a turn on and turn off? Is that a 3-minute test? Is that a 5-minute test? How long is that test? And how far away will it be heard?
Test is somewhere around 5 to 10 minutes. It's usually around 5 minutes to be able to have it start, transfer the load, make sure it carries the load, and to turn it off. The second part of that question is right at impossible to answer. I mean, we certainly can do studies and could tell you where, but it also depends on all the ambient noise. So if it's at 10 o'clock on Tuesday, we can pick a Tuesday at 10 and make some readings. It is within the allowed levels to keep the system running if we don't have power. It doesn't run all the time.
What are the levels? Excuse me. Number 15?
I'm 15. I'm Diana Harrell. I was born and raised. I've spent the majority of my life in Lake Oswego in the Palisades neighborhood. I'm also a real estate agent, and I think most people know it will affect your property values because these towers are considered unhealthy. There has been a lot of research. As a matter of fact, I just had a buyer not by a house because it was located next to a tower. It wasn't just one tower, there were multiple towers. You put in one tower, most likely they're gonna add another tower and another tower.
Yep.
That's just my comment.
Because of the agreement the Emery signed with the city, our lease with the city allows our use, public safety use only on that tower. It is also a restriction from the tribes.
You've already broken the lease.
No, we're not breaking the lease. We have a new lease.
You're gonna do a new lease in 10 years.
Number 16, please.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand his answer to the, you said something about the drives, I couldn't hear what you said.
The public safety, this use that we're talking about today will be the only use on that tower. There will be no cell carriers on that tower.
Can I, excuse me, and the second question, the Grand Ronde tribe, as a condition of their approval, says they will only allow one tower on that property. So that would be yes.
Number 16, please.
Yeah, my name is Steve Dondersheim. I live on 18493 Ray Ridge. I just moved in last summer, and I can tell you right now that if I had seen a tower up on that hill, I would not have bought the house that I bought. I'm blindsided by this whole thing. I researched Cooks Butte before I bought this house. There was nothing online about any of this. I'm disappointed in the city that they're allowing this to happen. It's totally at odds with the narrative of the park. My question is, you have a propane tank up there, you have a massive tower, we have thunderstorms all the time. Is there any increased danger from natural hazards because of this project? And do you have a response plan and a way to deal with it if there is one?
Earthquake.
Vandalism.
Well, we haven't had a vandalism problem at any of our sites in 20 plus years. We can ask the chief because the emergency response plan obviously would be Lake Oswego fire, but there will be one. The propane tank, we have decided to underground it. Probably the best, and we have designed the sites, the state requires us to design these as what's called an essential facility. It will take a 9 magnitude earthquake and continue to operate. And okay, you may not want to believe that. The exact same design and concept was in the system they just recently built in Alaska. And after the earthquake, the towers deflected a little bit while there was being ground movement. But once that stopped, reconnected, that system was back on air and served them. And that's one story that's fairly current. We believe we have designed those things in to make it be there because
so there are quite a few precautions, but the answer to the question is yes, there are more safety hazards because this thing is here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Number 17.
I mean, you may have answered the question. Is there any covenants that'll prevent other public or private equipment for cell phone companies from going up there and any more microwave?
yes. Our agreement is we won't allow them on the tower because our lease does not allow us to do that. We prefer, to be blunt, not to have the cell carriers on the public safety towers from the standpoint of maintaining the integrity of what we're doing and what we're operating.
Well, is it stated in words that it's preventing? I heard a lot of maybe.
It's not maybe, it's in, that's the way the lease is signed.
And is this lease online somewhere?
Well, yes, it is, from back when the council approved it. We can put it up online.
Number 18.
Yeah. My name is Megan Busby and I'm a fairly new resident to the area from Australia. My family chose this site because of the environmental nature and the wonderful community that we have. I feel that this park is the very fibre of what we are and who we represent as Lake Oswegans. Without our environment, without our trees and without protecting our environment, who are we as Lake Oswegans? What do we represent here? This is a beautiful parkland, and we need to do everything we can to save it and restore it. I also want to thank our firefighters and our EMS services, because I agree, you do a great job. I'm a Mums Demand Action for gun violence prevention, and I'd like to partner more closely with the Lake Oswego and the City Council on gun violence prevention, if only you would allow me to. When it comes to safety, I am deeply concerned as a mother, because we know that the FCC standards here in this country are 100 times less than it is in other countries. I can let you know that there are probably, China has higher levels of standards, Russia has higher standards. Many countries around the world have higher standards of safety when it comes to radiation levels in our communities. So that's a major concern for me. Another major concern is, I don't buy the fact that they are not going to lease this out to other telecommunications providers. My question is, how is their business sustainable when they lease it from the City Council for $1 a year?
The short answer is this is a fully public facility. So the property taxes you pay that pays for police and fire services in Lake Oswego also pays for the operation of this radio tower. It is not a money-making situation. It is a public service run all by public organizations.
I'm sorry, ma'am, your number was?
I was 18.
You were 18. How about number 19?
19. I'm Kirsty Riley, and I'm also a fairly new resident. We chose the Palisades neighborhood primarily because we loved the Butte. These are my young kids, and we love to hike up there with our dog. We love to run through the meadow. I'd like to just say thank you to the Emery family for gifting this majestic 42 acres to our city. And my question is, we understand that Clackamas 800 has had the lease with the city for about 2 years. Why weren't the residents informed adequately through this decision-making process? Why has there not been a public forum for discussion before this informational meeting? This informational meeting is packed because of citizens like myself and many others in this room who have been canvassing our neighbors who were completely in the dark and had no idea until we knocked on their door and said, do you know about the tower? No, we don't. When is the meeting? That's why most of the people are there in this room. A few years ago, Mountain Park was given a town hall meeting with city council members. Why were we not afforded that same process?
Well, public information is always a hard thing. The city publicized the meeting when we did the lease. There were people there, maybe none of you were. There were people there.
It was our Palisades Association, which they had posted nothing on their website until Monday. And reading back through the minutes of their meeting online, we could see that they had been in discussion, and if I understood the meetings correctly, they rented or they reserved this room tonight. Yet there was nothing on their website about this meeting or anything about the tower, even though I understand you guys had taken them to the Sandy Tower to explain the process and show them what the tower was going to look like. But that information was not passed on to the people that they're supposed to be representing.
Number 20.
Yes. First of all, vandalism is an issue in Oregon. In June of this year, I believe it was Coos Mountain, a 150-foot radio tower, the guidelines were cut, fell over. Just wanted to make that point. But really what I wanted to know is what were the terms of the original grant to the city? And what gives the descendants the right to alter that and offer a lease? I do not understand that.
The grant allows for utilities to be built on the site. That's the reason there are 2 water. No, both tanks are above ground.
The tower's above ground.
Both water tanks are above ground. There was nothing in.
Below trees.
There was nothing in the, I'm gonna call it a grant, and I'm not positive that's the right legal term of the document. It also allowed utility. It also said that there's a restriction on cutting trees, which is now expired, and it allowed heirs of the original family to agree to exceptions. That's all in the document.
I have the
Excuse me.
document right here, and it says that the towers were the only exception. The water towers were the only exception.
Please.
Right here.
Is that true?
Yes.
No.
We have
Number 21, please.
No, you know what, we're supposed to be able to talk here.
It's a public forum. We need it to be orderly.
We need
It is orderly.
We want questions answered. You're not rushing us.
The closing is done.
Yes, you are.
Is number 21?
I'm right here. Right here. Hi, my name's Rachel Rickman. I live right up against the Butte. I also know how to use the internet, so I've read the lease with the city and I've read your pre-application proposal. You have said very clearly that Clackamas 800 will not enter into contracts with cell phone towers, the carriers. But the city might be obligated to because of the Federal Telecommunications Act of 1996.
Absolutely.
I want to understand who will benefit monetarily from those leases. And I also want you all to know that the primary funder of the ballot issue that spawned this tower was Motorola. And so I'm not convinced that there was a wide and thorough search done in terms of technologies. You guys can all look it up on the Secretary of State website for Oregon. Motorola drove this ballot issue. And here we are with an out-of-state corporation building in our backyard.
Number 22, please.
Again, from cell phone leases on this tower.
Answer the question.
The tower is owned by C800, which is owned by you as the public. We will not allow.
But as a public donor, I don't want to
answer.
We will not allow cell phone uses on it.
Answer the question.
Our lease from the city tells us not to. Now, if the city, I'm not the city council.
So the city has money to make here, is what you have to say. And that's what you're hearing, that's what I'm hearing from you.
I'm sorry, Mayor, you were number
21.
21.
And I just want to say thank you to our first responders. We appreciate your service.
So there's a lot of talk about the lease and the legality of the lease, and we kind of wanted to make sure that you all, because none of us here are lawyers, David Powell is the city attorney. Unfortunately, he's somewhere else tonight, out of state. Hey, he had a conference that he's at out of state that's been planned for months. So people can roll their eyes, I'm just telling you the truth. He said he would welcome phone calls from people to explain that lease. And I'm not involved in the lease and from the point of the negotiations. But I do know that in our discussions, one of the things that was very plain was the city did not want other uses for that tower. It gums up many things in our communications. It creates interference, and we didn't want any cell towers or anything else on there.
Sir, can I just respond to
For
that?
now. Sure.
We have to be in the city. So the federal government doesn't want a proliferation of towers. Because of that, if any carrier approaches the city and says, hey, we want to add an antenna, they have to agree to that.
No, they do not.
No, they do not.
No, they do not.
That's,
Okay, so you know more about this. Please tell us, educate us.
so again, this is where David Powell, the city attorney, was very instrumental in making sure when he wrote that lease that that was in there. And he, again, said, give me a call, give him my name, and I will be happy to talk to anyone that wants to call.
I read the lease, and I don't speak legalese, but I do speak English, and it's my reading of the lease, which I'm happy to email to anyone here, seems to indicate that it is open to having antennas attached to the site.
It's in the pre-application notes by staff.
Yeah.
Page 4, item 6. It says staff fully expects commercial use of the tower in the future.
There we go.
And that's why they're applying for a telecommunications.
That is a requirement in the Lake Oswego Code. So they have put it in the application. Our lease supersedes that document. And again, I'm getting, as Chief Turin said, I'm getting too far into the legal question. Please do call David.
It's in the pre-application app.
Call David.
All right, I think the answer is that the city attorney has offered to answer those questions. Number 22.
I'm 22. My name is Mel Camp. I live at the top of Palisades Crest Drive at the gates into the park. I've lived there for 52 years. I've seen an incredible amount of things that happen in that park. And I've seen the responses to the things that have happened in that park over 52 years. And I have to tell you, I'm very concerned about the coverage and the security of that tower in the park because of the absolute Wild West nature of that park after dark. Sit here and tell you stories for an hour. So my question is, what is the city going to do about protecting that particular area? And from the fire department, how are you going to protect that, and where is the water coming from to suppress the fire from a 1,000-gallon propane tank?
I'll make a quick comment. All of our sites have live cameras on. We'll probably have about 4 cameras on these.
You're not going to get any coverage. You can't get the police up there now.
Number 23, please.
Oh, I want to hear the question. What about the water? How are you going to suppress the fire in that park?
The purpose of the meeting tonight is to
get answers.
We'll get you a written answer to that question.
Give me a break.
All right.
What farce of a meeting right here.
There's someone here from the Lake Oswego Review taking notes.
They're taking notes.
Yes,
they are.
Fire department here?
Yeah, right here.
If so,
I don't hear anything about water suppressing fire there.
So I know I'm not going to make you happy with any answer I give, but I'll give my best shot.
Okay.
We do our very best to respond to unlikely situations all over Lake Oswego, all over this county. And I can promise you that we would find ways to get water tenders in there. We'd find ways to shuttle water. The idea that it's going to be an issue for the fire department, I believe in our fire department, I believe we can overcome it. I'd be glad to have a conversation with you.
You guys have exercised up there, and I've watched you exercise up there, and the problem is, it's a single file situation. There's no way you're gonna get more than one vehicle up there at a time to fight that. And if you got a fire going in the meadow, as a matter of fact, why did they put the grass cutter in the meadow Monday morning after rain all day on Sunday to make it look nice for any of you who want to go up there and see what's going on? Yeah. I mean, this is just a phony.
I would imagine that's your assumption. I didn't know there was anything in the meadow up there. And it wasn't, I can trust that the city did not do anything to try to do that to you. They didn't do it. I'm not gonna listen to it. I can't believe you're saying
Number 23, please.
You better listen.
That's me. My name is Jan Castle. I'm the chair of the McVeigh South Shore Neighborhood Association, and I've hiked that hill before the switchbacks were even there, when my dog and I would have to go straight up the hill. I love the place up there, I have been really excited. I work also in emergency preparedness, and I've been really excited about the new towers because they're going to survive the earthquake, and that will make a huge difference in lives saved when the big earthquake happens. But I'm very concerned about the radiation, and so my question is there any other location that would give you the coverage that you need here that doesn't have to be in Cooks Butte?
The short answer is not the level of coverage that site gives us. It solves our
multiple sites, using 2 or more.
How about overlaying other counties?
We do overlay other counties, and it is, sites run about $1.5 million, and we don't have, we built the bond around so many sites. And we obviously aren't going to come back and ask for more bond money, so we are financially limited.
Number 24, please.
I'm number 24.
My name is Holly Ansari, and I'm an attorney, and I just bought a property on the south side of Cooks Butte Park. Never got notice of this meeting, so just wanted to say that. I have read the deed. I have read the affidavit that Marjorie signed in 1995 clarifying what her proposal was for that deed and what the intentions were. So it's very clear what those are. That's a legal document. That's a contract. So I don't know how you think you can get around it by having her sons sign something.
And I have to ask you to call the city attorney. He's the one that advised us that the lease was okay. So that's our counsel in this issue.
Number 25, please.
That wouldn't let us speak at the council meeting yesterday.
I'm sorry, number 25?
Yes. I'd like to get 25 when we're ready. We have plenty of time.
Let me give you a quick answer to that. You're probably not gonna like it.
Did everybody hear my question? No. About 30 of us went to the city council meeting yesterday
At City Hall, and we went to speak and ask questions to the mayor and the city council members regarding Cooks Butte during the community discussion section of the meeting. And we were first advised by the mayor not to speak. And then the city attorney stepped in and said that it would be against our best interest if we spoke. So we got basically shut down from asking some of these questions.
The Lake Oswego Land Use Code, the process I explained a little bit earlier, we go to the Design Review Commission. They will make a ruling. Let's assume for a second it's okay. You will undoubtedly appeal it to the city council. In a lot of jurisdictions, they use a position called a hearings officer, which is an independent. The fact that the city council has to hear this and make a judgment, it's called ex parte communication, and they wouldn't be allowed to rule on it. So that's the reason that you were advised that they in fact wouldn't talk to you about it, because it becomes ex parte.
So in layman's terms, the city council can't listen to the people who voted them into office about our genuine concerns about newborns in the park, about young children in the park.
And you have that opportunity during the DRC, during the Design Review Commission. And again, as I say, I'm assuming if that's okay, you will refer it to the council, and at that point in time, yes, they will.
25. The package you handed out has a bit of a project schedule in it. And my question is, when is the actual conditional use permit application expected to be filed?
Within 2 to 3 weeks.
So everybody knows it's a very public process, and a lot of the questions that are raised here will be addressed in that. So that's why I asked the question.
Number 26.
Hi, I'm Matthias Beckman. I have a comment and I have a question. So obviously there's a lot of feelings, questions about the second cell tower, a cell phone added to the existing or the planned cell tower? And the answer we always hear is, well, that's not in the lease, which would be a perfectly good answer if you hadn't just broken the old lease. My question is for the chief of police. You mentioned in your speech and that obviously there are some dead zones in the city with the current system. And you mentioned at one point this tower will alleviate most of these problems. So my question is, in terms of coverage, are we going from, let's say, 70% to 100%? Or are we going from 70% to 73%? Or what will this tower do for your people who, and the firemen who are not having coverage today?
Okay. So, great question, but it's a technical question. And so you're asking percentages. I'm not the technician that does the studies. I'm a police chief that runs 70 officers and works on those type of things. Your question really is more for the technical people who we hire to manage the project. So I can tell you right now, I can't do it in terms because that's outside my complete expertise of knowledge. You're talking about, percentages of radio coverage. I can tell you from a practical standpoint, because that's where I care about it. From a practical standpoint, I can tell you right now that down in the basement of this building, I can't talk to my officers. If you're on the backside of Overlook and down in Blue Herring and that area, I can't talk to our officers. If we make a traffic stop over there, we have to hope that our officers get back in their car because their car radios will work, but their portables, which are on their hips, when we're out contacting people, won't work down there.
Yes, phones?
Yeah, we do, and unfortunately, not always do the phones work. But and again, I appreciate you not rolling your eyes at me. One of the things that happens with phones when we're out talking to somebody, we don't have time to dial a number and talk to our dispatch center. When there's an emergency going on, our microphones are right here, and we can call for help or cover or what we need. So phones are a great thing when we have the time to use them. These are what we live on all the time. You also have to understand that phones going into LOCOM. So LOCOM's our dispatch center. I might get this number a little bit wrong, but last year, how many phone calls did you take?
It was about 128,000. And we have several lines that roll, but we have 3 cities. So if you, for example, if we have 3 staff people and you have, say, a accident with 5 or 6 cars on Boone's Ferry at Cruise, we could get 100 phone calls from the public about that. So to expect my officer to be able to get through to us and us to be able to actually talk to them is, it becomes problematic.
It does, it becomes very problematic.
But one other feature the chief forgot to mention, those of you that are closer can see this orange button on here. It's an emergency button.
Don't push it.
It locks the channel, it gives them clear communications because that officer got in trouble.
But did you get guarantees that with the cell tower, these things now work in the basement, work back there, work into here, work wherever you want them to work?
The coverages that are on the back of your maps or back of your packets that they did all the studies on say yes. Though that tower, and I hate calling it a cell tower because we call it a communications tower, because that communications tower is located where it's at, gives us the best coverage. So yes, I'm comfortable with that, saying that gives us the best coverage. Now again, this is a tough question. Yeah, there's probably other sites, but you also have to take into account that the same meeting happens in their backyard too. And so it's really easy to say, let's pick another site, But just because we pick another site doesn't mean that it's going to be built there. And eventually, a radio site has to be built, or else we don't have the coverage.
Just real quick,
Yeah.
in 2017, your minutes said that you were considering Skyland's uplifts for this tower. Now you're considering Cooks Butte. So what happened? They have the developer money up there? What's going on?
This is a better site altogether.
Oh, I understand.
Nature preserve, it's
From
not
a
an backyard,
coverage
it's a nature
perspective,
preserve.
from the goal of this tower, it's a much better facility.
Why did you initially consider another site?
Excuse me, you're out of order. We agreed, I believe, to a set of rules that we were going to go in sequence and not just have random conversations from the floor. I'd like to call on number 27.
My name's Sally, and I have a question for you. How old is the phone that you're using now? I go to Prep LO here in town. The neighborhood associations have phones that were to use in an emergency. Why can't you use something like that rather than building a big tower that may be out of date in a year?
Again, it comes down to officer safety and speed. And these are much faster, much clearer than trying to dial a phone number. And again, we just talked about how many phone calls go into LOCOM every day, every year, and making sure that we can get into LOCOM when we need to get into LOCOM makes it very important. So I'm going to answer the back half of your question, because I'm going to put on a fire hat, even though I'm not a fire guy, or my police hat. The biggest thing is, heaven forbid again, when we go into this building, because there's an emergency in this building, we don't have time as we're running through the hallways to dial the phone and start talking on the phone like this. We do have time to go, I'm here, I need 3 units there, and then we're off and running again. We don't have time to dial the phone, and as great as our dispatchers are, hoping that they pick up the phone in 3 seconds or less, and then telling our dispatch, this is where we need them, and then them relaying the message to the people outside, and then the people outside going, well, that was 2 minutes ago, I wonder where they are now. I would think that someday, 10 years from now, maybe the phone application will work in a different way. Right now, this is the technology that every police and fire and ambulance and I will also throw in our public works, because they're part of C800 too, our public works department. This is the technology that works.
Is that the best available technology in your hand?
This radio is the brand new iteration of the digital radios that was bought by the Bond Project, and all of our department is now outfitted with it, as well as our fire department and as well as our public works department. So yes, this is the best technology.
Number 28, please.
Hi, my name is Liz Lonnie, and I'm a resident on Palisades Crest Drive. And I'm looking forward to getting your application so that we can understand why the second best site isn't good enough for you. The thing I wanted to point attention to is, it's one thing to say it's okay to use a P&A area for a tower, but that doesn't make it right. And in the application, there's a conditional use on page 15 that says, the functional characteristics of the proposed site should be reasonably compatible with its surrounding area. And my question is, I would love to see a picture of the tower next to the little water tower to try and understand how in any way that's reasonably compatible. We have 4 paths that will go past your tower: the Palisades Crest, the path that leads into it, the path from the meadow, and the path from the other tower. Four nature paths will go directly within 20 feet of the tower. I don't see that as physically compatible. This is a heritage site, and it just makes no sense to me.
And that's the challenge that we have to work with the city on with our application. I mean, we understand that we have some pretty stringent code requirements that we have to answer to. And it's not cut and dry. I mean, it's a lot of work is going into this. And so, yeah, we'll be addressing that for sure.
Number 29, please.
My name is Anna Mikulka. I live in Lake Oswego. I've been there for a couple of years.
And I'm very concerned about this trend in Lake Oswego of just tearing down a lot of beautiful natural areas and trees, and there just seems to be such disregard for, disrespect for nature and the things that people really love, that a lot of people who moved here love these things. And my husband and I discovered Cooks Butte a few months ago just by accident, and we walked up to the top and we thought it was a wonderful experience. It's a really special place. And if you haven't been there, you have to go there. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to walk up those trails and see a radio tower up there. My goal is not to see a radio tower. It's to get a moment of peace from the craziness in our lives, in our world. And I feel like I am not against building a security tower. I'll obviously need one, but it's a natural space like that is not the appropriate location for it. Please look for another location.
Number 30, please.
Number 30. My name is Michael Lavalier. I've lived Palisades Crest Drive since 1992. I was involved with the first attempt to put a cell tower up there in 1994, the second attempt in 2002. And in each case, after the grantors of this gift to the city realized the impact that was about to occur, they rescinded their approval. You're aware of that?
Yes.
Okay, that's not my question though. What you were saying, what I hear is this is a money issue. You were saying earlier with the bond measure and the cost of the tower versus cost of other sites. Well, go ahead. What were you going to say?
The suggestion was, could we put up 2 sites or 3 sites to make up for this one? That we don't have the available funding to do. We need to find a site for this tower.
All right, well, that's what I'm saying. We're talking about money here. And just because this is the easiest site doesn't make it the best site. And the challenge for you and the city and we taxpayers is to help you find the best site, not the easiest site. So you've got to agree that that might be the easiest, but based on everything that's been said tonight, you must realize that it's not the best. It's the easiest, but not the best. Let's find the best site, not the easiest site. If it costs a couple of bucks more, let's do it. And certainly the first responders, I mean, we all want the first responders to have that communication. So let's get on that. This has been going on at least since 1994. There are solutions. And the challenge here for C800 and the whole city is to find the solution, not the easiest solution, but the best solution. So I'm asking you guys tonight to find the best solution and give up on the easiest solution.
Okay. So I'm going to flip-flop your terms. We've chosen the most difficult location for us to work with, as you can see by the crowd we have here. It's the best location for the need of the site. So I'm just reversing how you use best and easiest, but no, this is certainly not easy. This is not easy by any means.
All right, let me make an announcement. We have the room until 8 o'clock.
What happened today?
Well, we no longer have permission to be here. They have to, I believe.
The resumers is reserved till 8 o'clock through the Lake Oswego School District.
All right. So we have a number of other people who'd like to speak. We've got about 10 minutes. And I'd like, if your comment is going to be one that's already been made, that you waive your time until we find new information that would go into the record that goes to the city. So I'll call on number 31.
That's me. Gentlemen, thank you for coming. Law enforcement, fire, appreciate everything you guys do for the community. My name's Chris Larson. I own the property at 18785 Westview Drive. I own a good portion of the south side of Cooks Butte Park, along with Jan Hollabaugh. I grew up on Delanca Lane. I was born and raised in Lake Oswego. I went to this school, so I have a lot of passion for the area. And I will say this, anything that city council does that we don't like can be undone. We live in a ballot and an initiative state. It takes 10% of the voters of Lake Oswego, about 2,400 signatures, to get on the ballot. And I right now say that we go ahead and we ban all cellular communications and any towers in our parks. It can be done very easily. If we put it into law, they can't do it. I would propose that if it does get built, you guys put radiation signs at all the entrances, because, I mean, after all, those things do put off a lot of radiation.
Number 32.
Yeah, my name is Bill Hunting. I was the first resident here in 1938. So I've seen I work in the technology field at IBM. I've seen a lot of things go on that people have objected to and turn out to be everyday use. I'm thinking about the cell phone that you carry in your pocket. Talk about a radiation device. They have, cell phones that you plug in your ear and leave them there. We're headed for radiation, interesting challenges, but they're not going to come from these towers. These things are way up in the air when they're radiation. Standing on the ground, you're not going to get affected. People don't live in the park full time. Now, I'll tell you, there's people that live by the park, but they're far enough away, I would suspect, that your radiation study should support that they do not have a problem. So, given the technology we live in today, let's get on with it.
Number 33, please.
That's me. I'm Taylor Finley. I've been here in Lake Oswego since 1990. Wanted to actually ask a specific question because you kind of danced around it a little bit of why what the actual cost difference could be of if we had multiple smaller towers. It wasn't at Cooks Butte, or you said the best solution for you. But what would it actually take dollar-wise to not be at Cooks Butte, but also support our first responders?
And the answer is we could go back to the studies we've done on coverage and could answer that question. If we did these three, I'm picking three right out of the air. If we did these three sites, it would make up for that. As Bjorn said, we've got this group of people at each of those sites to deal with as well, however. But I'll be glad to do that work.
Number 34. $35, $34.
I'm Jan Hollabaugh. I live at 1901 Childs Road. I own the old Emery farm. It is the back of my property. That's the park that Emery and John gave to the city. I was also involved with Michael in 1994. That was a year after Marjorie moved. They waited a year since she moved to start with the cell towers. We shut that down in 94 because they thought she was dead. And they said she didn't preclude cell towers. And the reason she didn't preclude is because they weren't around in 72. I'm the person that drove Marjorie Emery to sign the affidavit. I know what she wanted. She signed a document that she thought precluded anything but wildlife and people walking in the park. It's emotional for me. For 26 years, I've safeguarded this. I've been in the fight in 1994, 2002, and here we are again. She would not want radiation in her beautiful park. She loved birds, she loved dogs, she loved horses. And people. People are not going to use the park once it becomes a radiation hazard. That was not her intent. So whatever you say she intended, I drove her. I watched her sign it. I talked to her. This is not what she wanted.
number 34.
That was
35.
I'm 35.
I'm sorry, 35.
I'm 35.
36 in the past.
I'm Sally Everett. I've lived here since 1954 around Lake Oswego. I grew up down on Cedar Street. I now live at Green Tree Circle. I've gone to Cooks Butte since I was a child. I've seen beautiful owls up there in the forest that you want to take out. You have to take out 50 feet. You're going to have to remove a lot of those trees. It's a beautiful site, and I think that you need to reconsider other places. Our trees are vanishing. This place has changed dramatically in the last 10 years. The people that have been here just a few years, they think it's beautiful, but they should have seen it before. I welcome population because I know our world is booming. And we have to have population, but let's save the parks. Let's save the greenery that we have. That's the last natural place in Lake Oswego that we have. She put a rock up there that said, this is for human, it's sandblasted. You guys maybe need to go up there and look at it in the meadow. This is for human and animals alike to share and have peace. We don't want that up there. And we're not the only ones. It's people all over Westland, all over.
How about one more question? I believe it's number 36.
It's you. Yeah, hey, wow. So my name is Pierre Zabrinsky, and I'm really happy to ask the last question. Actually, it's not even really a question. It's not even 8 o'clock yet. We can have more questions till 8. I'm gonna make it very quick. I thank the people who respond in emergencies and are there to protect us. And I'm really touched by what I saw here tonight and these voices I heard. Incredible, amazing. And what I want to say is, when I walk, I had a million questions asked, but I guess I got to ask one. I'm looking at you people up there on the dais as part of what I call the Ramjack Corporation. You're trying to shove this down our throats in conjunction with the city council and the city attorney. This whole thing with the natural world, they put a death grip on it to make sure that there's no leeway to work around it. And I can see the way you're talking and the way you're nodding your heads and the way you're acting, that you're going to go ahead with this. It doesn't matter what we say. And you there with a young man with a coffee T-shirt on there, I couldn't be more on your side. You said it very, very well. When I walked in the door, the first person I met was you in the black shirt there at the table, manning the table. And I asked you, excuse me, who are you? What are you doing? And you told me, I'm here volunteering to take care of people signing in for their questions. And when I asked you, well, who did you volunteer for? You immediately said, I don't know. And I said, you don't know? I said, why? Who did you talk to? Who got you here?
Not enough providing personal information is actually what
you said, that question doesn't need to be asked. Then I get here and I see the green printout and it says we should all identify ourselves. You, Mr. Monitor, you didn't identify yourself. You said, I'm the monitor here. We don't know who you represent and who you're working for. And I want to reiterate what you said. There is no way you're going to change these people's minds. They're going to go forward no matter what, and they're going to go as far as they can get away with. And the only recourse you really have is to mobilize and get those scoundrels out of the city council because they're not project, what they did at Lake Ridge Junior High School, they're ripping out all those trees. They're not on your side to protect the natural environment.
We are mobilizing. We already have hundreds of signatures on a petition. If you haven't signed, we'll be right outside the door at the end of the evening. If you have friends and family and neighbors who want to sign, contact us. We'll give you our contact information. We'll be happy to come to their homes. If you want to join,
if you don't want the tower. Yeah. If you don't want the tower. Look at us. We don't want this, and we'll get you out.
I have an announcement here. It's Walter Emery's birthday. Happy birthday. Excuse me, I've got one last issue before we close the meeting here. I want to make it clear, the current proposal we have, and everyone's concerned about trees, we are proposing to remove only one tree. So it's not multiple trees.
It doesn't belong in the park. This park is a natural preserve. And we are going to fight you all the way until it's preserved for life.
If you want to join our effort as well, we'll have signups for that to give you further information.